not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
All right, this is a hottest takes edition of Flagrant Howls here, and we've just spent the morning, including the last 10 minutes before pressing record, just Googling more specifics about the second apron. And now that De'Aaron Fox is available, according to reports, is there any way that the Wolves could get him in a trade that sends Julius Randle out? And so Declan's head is about to explode, and I think he's going to lead us off with a second apron-related hot take. But we'll get to our hottest Wolves takes here on Flagrant Howls. Sports Dad, Judd, Phil Mackey, producer Declan, after we take you to Kieran's, right across the street from Target Center, boys.
I'm going to need a few beverages from my friends at Kieran's here as I try to understand whatever the hell.
So if you look at
is.
the second apron,
Here, give me another Kona Big Wave as I try to understand what the hell is going on here. But Kieran just steps away from the Target Center. If you're looking for a nice pregame or even postgame place to go right before or after any Wolves games, go check out Kieran's. They got great game day specials. They have great food as well. Go check out Kieran's, just steps away from Target Center in downtown Minneapolis.
Also, our friends at North American Banking Company helping to power Flagrant Howls this season. North American Banking Company is a Minnesota-based banking company giving you a better banking experience since 1998. 6 locations in the Twin Cities: Maple Grove, Roseville, Shoreview, Hastings, Woodbury, 50th in France. I had such a bad experience recently with a big name bank company that you all know that I will not throw under the bus. And it was like, I literally just want to talk to one human being that knows how to fix this problem. And it was just a goose chase. And that's, I think, the experience you're going to find at North American Banking Company is that not only can you get a hold of a human, but they love building personal relationships because they are local, 6 locations. They specialize in personal relationships and cutting-edge online tools. So whether you're looking for just a better checking savings situation, maybe you're just looking for something basic like that, or if you're looking to buy a home or tackle a renovation or start a new business, North American Banking Company can help you. nabankco.com/Mackey to learn more. Go to nabankco.com/Mackey. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Okay, let's turn the temperature up here, boys. Timberwolves are a season high, 4 games over 500. They got a big game late tonight against Phoenix. It's a back-to-back West Coast swing, Phoenix, and then tomorrow against the Jazz. They do have some winnable games on paper anyways. These are our hottest Timberwolves takes. Let's start with Declan.
All right, so this is related to the Wolves, but also from a league perspective. The NBA has gone full Major League Baseball in the worst way. And what I mean by that is someone who, disclaimer, love baseball. I cover the Minnesota Twins as a beat podcast, which you can find on the Score North Twin Show. I love baseball, but I am also well aware of the confusion that is involved with their arbitration status and their team control. And you're probably even hearing those words as someone who doesn't understand baseball, and you're like, what is arbitration and what is even team control? It might be self-explanatory for the latter part, but it makes no sense. Sometimes, Super two. Sometimes a rookie will debut, and he'll get 120 at-bats, but technically he still classifies as a rookie for the next season because he didn't get to this amount of at-bats in his rookie season, or a pitcher throws 40 innings, but he didn't get to 50 innings, and he still gets rookie status for the next year. Doesn't that sound preposterous? Doesn't that sound so silly? Okay, NBA, second apron, first apron. In my best Michael Scott voice, explain this to me like I'm 5. I have no idea what the hell any of this means. I do a trade machine, and I see, De'Aaron Fox, who's rumored to be on the block, he does want to go to the Spurs. Yes, it might be a pipe dream, but I like entertaining the idea. And I do the trade machine, and it says it works. And then I get, well, actually, Declan, here comes the, CPAs of the second apron that say, well, there's an exception here. The Wolves are already in the second apron, which means they can't acquire and do a direct trade with Sacramento. Why? Why are we making this so confusing? I don't understand. You're telling me the Timberwolves could not acquire a point guard because there's a second apron?
Yeah.
Can't stand it.
Yeah, you went, I think, because you went on Twitter yesterday, and it was the ESPN trade machine, right?
Yeah.
And as far as so you went in and you just plugged in Julius Randle for De'Aaron Fox, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the ESPN trade machine said, "Ding, ding, ding! You're good to
You
go.
can't
Go put this on the internet.
You can't do that trade."
Dude, well, first of all, the Wolves actually employ the inventor of the ESPN trade machine, but the NBA's new rules, the new collective bargaining agreement, and the luxury tax, and then the first apron and the second apron, and all the different layers of penalties for being in the first and then the second apron are so complicated that ESPN, the biggest sports media mogul in the country, maybe in the world, has said bleep it and thrown their hands up with their trade machine. They're like, you guys can still use this, but we don't even have any idea what the second apron penalties are.
Right.
I will direct you, if you're a real nerd and you're looking to plug in your own trade ideas, the Spotrac.com NBA trade machine does have the updated, like, what you can and can't do within the first and second aprons. But it is, man, I'm with Dex. Like, the fact that, like, 90% of fans and media, and maybe even there's probably some GMs and Pobos that are like, okay, so I just got off the phone with the Kings. Can we do this? What can and can't we do?
Yeah, you lawyers.
For the record, the Wolves cannot, within the parameters of the second apron luxury tax, where they are, as one of the highest spending teams in the NBA, they cannot trade Julius Randle for De'Aaron Fox in any form because they can't take in more money than they're giving out. Now, if you're in other scenarios, if you're above the salary cap or even in the luxury tax on the lower end, you can still take back a little more, like 10 or 25% more in a trade than you send out, so that it allows for some flexibility. But because De'Aaron Fox makes $1.8 million more than Julius Randle, you are not allowed as a second apron luxury tax team to take back extra money. So then you might say, well, wait a second. Okay, well, just throw in like Luka Garza or something. Can't you just throw in like an extra $2 million player.
That's what you used to do.
Throw in Leonard Miller, right?
That's what you used to do.
And just make this as even as possible. Give them a little more money. Well, sorry, folks. Because as a second apron luxury tax team, you can't combine and aggregate two contracts to equal one. You can't say, well, this player makes 15 and that player makes 20, so we will add those two together like a normal NBA trade to get to 35 to get the $35 million player in De'Aaron Fox. You can do that if you're not a second apron team, but you can't if you're the Timberwolves looking to make a deal for De'Aaron Fox to pair next to Anthony Edwards for the next 5 years or whatever.
So, in other words, don't even try. Because Tim Connelly, I guarantee you...
No, you can't do it. Like, it's not allowed.
Oh, no,
period.
no. I'm saying don't try to... Like the whole idea of having fun with trades like Declan tried to. Don't even try. Because I guarantee you the Spotrac thing has holes, too. There are executives right now who do not understand it. I guarantee you Tim Connelly has a team of lawyers and capologists that he has to consult.
Oh, it's wild.
A salary cap by its nature is confusing. Like when Bill Guerin goes to try to make a trade for the Wild, he has to consult with his guys. And there's no such thing as the second apron in the National Hockey League. So
the NFL.
Yeah, so if you can imagine the confusion that exists here, but again, it goes back to the cat trade. This is why you made the cat trade, to get out of this eventually, just not out right now.
And again, like, I know that people are, well, this is this epic mistake, and the Knicks are rolling in the Eastern Conference, but all of these restrictions would have been in play right now if you had hung on to Cat, and you would have gone into next summer having to unwire this probably.
Yeah, yes.
You would have had to trade and by the way, we'll trade Gobert. Okay, well, I mean, you probably have to include a first round pick to get rid of the 3 years left on Gobert's contract. So that's a whole problem in itself if he continues. He's been a little better the last couple of games, but it's no matter what, they were facing this reckoning and the limitations in roster building. It's a lesson in the only way you want to be in the second apron, which completely handcuffs you from like making other trades and doing anything, is if you have a fully complete championship level roster. Now and you're comfortable rolling forward for the next year or two. The Wolves, I know they went to the Western Conference Finals, but they weren't. Like they were not. They're not on that level. It was a great, fun season. But what will they do in the next week in and around navigating the second apron parameters here? Are they gonna? I do think they're gonna trade Julius Randle in the next week. I'm not saying he's like the problem. He's actually integrated quite well, but he's 30 years old. He's not a long-term fit for this thing, and you have to get out of the second apron.
He's a problem though. Like
contractually,
just like
yeah,
Cat,
contractually,
just like Cat was. He's a problem now. I smell a rat here, though. I think that this is done, as confusing as the entire process is, I think this is done as a way for the NBA to gradually start to suppress salaries. Because you're going to think long and hard now before
that's the point of the luxury tax.
Dish out. But the luxury tax has existed for a long time. The second apron now makes you really think about things.
What's funny is like the NFL just has a hard salary cap, basically. And there's a bunch of ways you can kind of like accounting, you can sign a player and shove money into the future and stuff. But like every team is capped every single year. The NBA salary cap has always been a soft one. It's always been kind of a recommendation, a speed limit. It's 55 here, but you can definitely, it's a country road.
And you got your bird
so
rights,
70.
right?
Yeah.
Your bird rights. He's your guy. Just sign him for whatever.
Oh, God.
So yeah, it is, man. If you're out there on Wolves Twitter or Wolves X, Wolves Reddit, and you're trying, there are so many threads right now on Wolves Reddit where it's like, here's a trade idea. Can they do this?
Well,
is this possible? Just literally go to Twitter and type in Timberwolves De'Aaron Fox, and it's just a bunch of people trying to figure out, wait, what the hell? Is there any way they basically make the same amount of money, right? Can this happen or no? So I don't know. I did see there was one creative like 4-team trade that somehow mathed out a route for De'Aaron Fox to get here. I don't know, man. This is for smarter people than three of us, man.
It was a 15-team trade. It involved a couple of G League teams as well, who gave the Wolves a couple of coins to help them out. Yeah, it's confusing.
So, Judd, what is your hottest Timberwolves take?
So we ripped Cat for a long time, and he deserved it for this. But it's only fair now that turnabout is fair play. Anthony Edwards has become worse than Cat was when it comes to bitching at officials.
Wow.
He has become
off today.
Worse than Cat. He deserves some heat. He deserves some heat. And this is my biggest one. He leads the NBA with 9 techs. And yes, he has flipped off, I think, the officials. He claimed it wasn't. I think it was. Nonetheless.
Joe Ingles thought it was something enough to pull his hand down.
Yes. And Joe, by the way, God bless him. Joe's biggest contribution when he leaves here will have been in every video that Timberwolves production has produced for the scoreboard. Literally everything they do, Joe is on. And he's a funny guy.
Joe, we need someone to name as many zoo animals as possible
in
the
Joe
next
Ingles.
30 seconds. Can you come here for a second?
It's Joe Ingles. Eat 18 Klondike bars. Oh, yeah, I'll do that, mate. It's Joe Ingles. But anyway, Cat has become, it is, I mean, I think I texted Phil during the last game against the Hawks. Every drive down the lane, he's going up for the shot and screaming, hey, ref, now. Instead of, that's a foul. It's, hey, ref. It is nauseating because this is a guy who at one time publicly talked about how Cat had to stop that. And I don't know what's happened here, but it is like, Anthony, everything, 1, is not a foul. 2, the constant bitching and moaning is not going to help. And 3, you should be driving. And if you're physically taken on, that's fine. They'll call it sometimes. They won't call it every time. But I am so sick of this. What are we doing? We ripped Cat up and down, and he deserved it. Well, Ant is worse than Cat right now at this crap.
It is a little obnoxious. I'll definitely give you that. I think 2 things can be true here. I do think Ant gets a worse whistle than some of the other top 10 to 15 players in the league, and some of it might just be he's thick, he's big, he doesn't get thrown. He'll absorb contact and not get thrown off his center as he's jumping. Maybe think about if Ja Morant or some of the smaller players in the NBA who are ball handlers and going into the trees, there's a gust of wind from the tunnel and it might throw that dude 10 feet out of the paint. But so I think it's fair to say Ant doesn't get the same whistle as some of the other top players. He probably should get a better whistle. And also, every time he misses a shot in close range, he is throwing his hands up almost just by it's like Pavlov's dog's reaction. Right. Like, I missed a shot, therefore I need to complain to the official. And in some cases, there's 5-on-4 going back the other way, and he's out of place on defense. So yeah, I mean, Carl was as guilty as almost anyone. And dude, Jokic is an offender, and a lot of the top guys in the NBA are offenders here. So he's not the only one that does this, but it does cost them possessions oftentimes when he is doing it and he's slow to get back on defense. I will say, actually, just if we're going to nitpick Ant here, in fairness, because that's what, this isn't Ant hate. It's not Ant disrespect. I think there's room to say he is an incredible rising star player, and there's some things to poke at here, and you've hit on one of them. The other one, Chris Finch poked at after they beat the Hawks in the post-game press conference a couple nights ago. I mean, he was like using profanities, and Finchy basically said, like, we're basically effing around at the start of these games against teams that we should be beating, and it starts with our top guys, is what he said.
Yep.
And you could tell, and Dex was in the arena for that game against the Hawks. There are some games where Anthony Edwards just decides, you know what? Yeah, we just beat the brakes off the Nuggets on national TV. We got a big game in a couple nights against the Suns and a back-to-back. Did
you see his excuse, too?
What did he say?
Post-game, his excuse was because the Hawks were so depleted that it's the hardest to play against teams that you don't know who's actually going to, like, get the shots. Come on.
I don't know that, like, my comeback to him would be, okay, whatever. Like, I mean, there's still a scouting report for who you think is going to be the pecking order of offense. But, like, dude, what the Hawks do in that game with backups, no Trae Young, is irrelevant to the result.
Yep.
Because they showed it. The Wolves came out, I would argue, actually, Anthony Edwards came out really flat and just taking bad step-back threes, but the team was still able to get up by like 17 points at halftime. And then they give it away in the third, 9 turnovers, just winging the ball around completely lackadaisically. But then they decided, all right, yeah, we're playing a bunch of backups and we are more talented. And they hit the gas pedal again in the fourth quarter. It's like, what? Who cares if you know who? Just literally, like, play as hard as you can, be up by 24 points at the end of the third quarter, and then rest in the fourth quarter. But it's like sometimes Ant will circle 8 to 10 games on the calendar in his mind and be like, I don't need to bring the full version of myself. I can kind of just like take long shots and test out some crazy passes. So I will join the nitpicking in an otherwise like he's literally like historically great from 3-point range. He's averaging a career high 26.5 points. There are some things that are disappointing year 5. I think it's fair to point that out.
He is. Here's my biggest thing, and it goes to all the complaining as well. He is regressing as far as maturity goes, which bothers me. Like I will continue to pound the drum of I thought the Olympic experience was going to pay off huge in approach, and it's almost like it did nothing.
He's also still like, what is he, 23 still? Has he turned 24 yet? He's 23. He doesn't turn 24 until August 5th. So next year he'll be 24. He is still, as we sit here, and this is where I'll flip back to the other side and just say, like, yeah, criticism is warranted. And he's 3 years away from his NBA prime, his mental prime, probably his physical prime, his ability to just be the most complete player that he can be in the NBA. And we're going to have to navigate that as we watch him. This is just the reality.
My thing is he's played a ton of games, and regression concerns me. Like if he was status quo, like I mean, this was a kid a year ago who would talk about how Cat needs to quit complaining. And now you're doing the same exact thing with Cat gone. So, yes, he's young, but, I mean, he's played a ton of games. He's been on some great all-star teams now. And it's like, didn't you learn anything from watching those guys, how they approach things? And perhaps he didn't. I don't know.
You could tell, at least I was behind the basket about 10 rows up. But you could tell that the body language between Randle and crab claws and with Rudy Gobert with his crab claws that can't catch a GD pass in the paint, and Chris Finch, like there was an inbound pass, remember, after like a defensive breakdown where all three of them just looked at each other like each one of the Spider-Man memes of it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault.
Julius does that a lot.
Julius,
God,
Julius does that a lot.
I think after watching Julius now for 3 or 4 months, like pretty much every night, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't think he's like cancerous Jimmy Butler is cancerous.
Right.
When he decides I'm out, he literally becomes a cancer growing inside your locker room. It's happened. This is like the 4th time it's happened. Julius, I think, is just there's like resting bee face, right? He's just like he's like resting frump body language. And I think most of his teammates generally like him and get along with him, and he's also participating and having fun when they force the other team to call a timeout or whatever. But yeah, it's just he's 30. Like this would be a bigger decision if he was 25 or 26 and fit the timeline on Julius. It's not a decision.
The problem is it doesn't feel like he brings enough for his age and experience. It doesn't feel like he brings enough positivity to the floor, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's a certain spark you'd like to see, and it's not it. Yeah, exactly. It's not him.
They know who he is. Yeah.
But I also don't know that that's acceptable. Like I think this team needs that. Like there's just so many times that they just go into a lull, and it feels like that's a Julius thing, just to sort of go into a lull.
Yeah. It feels like there are better fits for that volume of minutes, and it's kind of crazy because he has games where it's like he's a huge reason why you're winning, and his size and his playmaking. But then there's other nights where he's just a turnover machine and he's taking too many threes for a guy that doesn't hit them at a very high rate, but he's such a high usage player. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to some Wolves positivity here with my hottest Wolves take, presented in part by Bricksworth. Just down the street from Target Center. Bricksworth is one of my favorite places in downtown Minneapolis, the North Loop. Dry rub wings to die for. I mean, they literally have Cool Ranch Dorito dry rub wings at this place that are just mind-blowing. They also have the signature Nas Reed Hazy IPA, Detroit-style pizza. Bricksworth in the North Loop. They also have parking, too, which is a little less expensive than parking right by Target Center. Just go over there, pregame, walk over. Even for away games, they got the TVs on. They brew their own craft beer at the OG Burnsville location, too. Bricksworth, but specifically the North Loop location is where it's at for home games. Also, just right across the street, basically, from Bricksworth is Element Hotel, a Marriott Bonvoy hotel, which is a great, great walkable place to stay if you've got friends or family in town. Maybe you're coming in from out of town to watch the Wolves. Super walkable to Target Center and some of downtown Minneapolis' finest, most popular bars and restaurants. Bright natural lighting, city views, and free breakfast that includes breakfast tacos, avocado toast, sweet potato hash, pancakes. It is our recommended hotel for spending a fun night or two downtown Minneapolis, maybe going to a Wolves game. 15% room rate discount when you go to scorenorth.com/element. That's a 15% room rate discount. scorenorth.com/element. So, okay, here's my hottest Wolves take. Despite the clunkiness of the season, despite the uncertainty going into the trade deadline, and despite some of our criticisms, I think constructive criticisms for this team's star player, Anthony Edwards, the Minnesota Timberwolves can still make it back to the Western Conference Finals. If you look at the rest of the West right now, you guys are going to call me crazy homer guy for saying this.
I'm listening to hear it.
The only team, and we kind of touched on this with Doogie yesterday in the scoop session, The only team in the Western Conference that you say, oh, okay, they are like next level offensively, the Oklahoma City Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He has become stratosphere, top 4 player in the NBA, automatic 30 points every single night. The defense they play too. I mean, they're holding teams to 104 points per game, which is 3 points better than the second best defensive team. And that doesn't include their explosive offense and, leading scorer. The average Thunder game is a plus 12 differential for the Thunder, so they're dominant, and I'll give them that. But then you got the Rockets are really good, and the Rockets are knocking off the Celtics and the Wolves and whatever.
That guy can coach.
And they got one of the best coaches in the NBA and a really young, talented roster. But it is a young roster in many cases that, okay, you get into a playoff series and you guys are going balls to the wall in the regular season to try and, because that's what you do when you're a young ascending team. You go all in every night in the regular season. And the Grizzlies are back and healthy and playing a 10, 11-man rotation. So there are definitely teams that are better than the Timberwolves. But I don't know that you get into a 7-game series with Rockets, Grizzlies, Nuggets, who you beat in one last year and just drubbed on national TV this weekend. Lakers with 40-year-old LeBron. Lakers are formidable. Clippers, Suns, Mavs, even Mavs fully healthy. I don't know that you go into any of those 7-game series and think, well, the Wolves are screwed. And maybe they even wind up flipping Julius Randle for like a better fitting piece or someone who shoots threes at a higher rate, and Naz Reid fills in the minutes. He plays an extra 10 minutes a game.
Yep.
So that's the crazy thing, man. Despite the tumultuous nature of the season, I think it's still possible for the Wolves to win playoff series in a few months from now. That's my hottest take.
So I think you're partially crazy and partially right. And here's why. If on February 7th the roster is the same, I think you're crazy. I think that this roster is currently constructed. They don't have what they need to get through to win 2 rounds. However, and Tim Connelly has made big trades before, like yes, the second apron proposes problems for folks like us who want to do the trade machine. But the reality is that the Wolves have an entire staff of people who can work on these things and probably find ways. I think if Julius Randle is gone, and to your point, they get just some, not like massively better fits, but better fits with what they have, I think you could be right. So if they come up, if February 7th it's status quo, I don't think they got a chance. Could they win a round? Maybe, but I think that's pressing it. But if February 7th, it's been like, okay, here we go, retooled. Yes, I do not think that you're being a complete homer in that case.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, West just seems, outside of OKC, who is dominating teams, it seems still pretty open. Like the East between Boston and Cleveland, like that should be an absolute blast if they ever meet in the playoffs. But the West is still, it feels pretty open. And the Wolves got there last year, as a 4 seed. Got to the Western Conference Finals as a 4 seed, and then
3 or 4, 3 or 4.
I think they were 4, and then they swept a Suns team that everyone picked to beat the Wolves. So
it was the 3-6. It was the 3-6.
Okay,
yeah,
got it. But yeah, I still feel pretty good about the Wolves potentially still making some noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, and they could. I mean, again, like you got to win these games. You can't just, you're not playing them on paper. But like even if they lose to Phoenix tonight, okay, you've got Utah coming up. You got the Wizards coming up again. You've got a Bulls team that you're playing at home. Portland. I mean, you could make some hay. Now you get Oklahoma City 3 times in the middle of February, 3 times in, I think it's like an 11-day stretch before and after the All-Star break. But this is, if you win the games you're supposed to win here in the next 2 weeks, you could actually find yourself sitting in like the 5 seed in the Western Conference around the time of the All-Star break.
You just said the key. You just said the key thing. More so than like the OKC games, I want to see how they look and how they play against the bad teams. Because that to me is like this team's apathetic play at times is much more a problem against the bad teams. Yes. So if they start to clean up on those teams, then I'm way more on board.
Yeah, they've a couple things. They have played fewer games against below 500 teams than any of the other Western Conference playoff or play-in teams so far.
Interesting.
So they've played a really tough schedule from that standpoint. So they're gonna make up for by playing weaker teams. Despite that, they have the most losses against below 500 teams of any team 1 through 9 seed. In fact, only 4 teams in the Western Conference have more losses against below 500 teams. The Kings, who have 6, the Wolves have 5 losses to below 500 teams. The Kings have 6 losses. The Blazers have 7. The Jazz have 9, and the Pelicans have 10. So this was the problem 2 years ago, that they had like a crazy record against. I think they had the best record in the league against the above 500 teams.
Yes.
And they lost like 12 games or something to below 500 teams. So again, the schedule says what it says. So you have to go out and actually play the games and be engaged and not fret. Oh, who's going to shoot the ball for the Hawks? Who cares, dude? Go out there and score 120 points and stop taking step-back contested threes when you can get to the rack.
Just play complete games. The Denver game to me was great and maddening, right? Because I don't expect you to play that well every game. But if you take that game down, let's just say 2 notches, okay? Yeah. So you're not that good, but you're still good. You're going to beat the bad teams.
Yeah, they have they just have a wide variance and wide range. But you know what happens when your superstar player has a wide range and variance of Correct. He still has those 6 for 20 shooting performances in him. He still takes 3 or 4 really questionable shots. I know he's one of the best 3-point shooters in the league. But, man, you can get almost any shot you want or get anywhere on the court and make an open pass, a pass to an open teammate. Mm-hmm. There's 5 or 6 shots a game they're just kind of wasting just with their superstar player. Anyways, despite all that, this West is wide open. Go beat some bad teams and get yourself up in the seeding. So, all right, these were our hottest Timberwolves takes on Flagrant Howls, your favorite Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.